So first of all, thanks everyone for joining us today. We do appreciate every single person in the audience, as we understand there is a lot more stuff going on online these days. So we do appreciate you are with us. So far, we've done 4 webinars here at AviaDev Europe, and today on the 5th edition, we will take a look on the new exciting tool Kiwi.com has designed to help airports and destinations in these difficult times. With this sort of a crystal ball, you will be able to get a little taste of which routes operated to or from your airport are being searched the most, and of course many other things. And I won't go into too much detail, as I certainly don't want to steal the show from guys from Kiwi.com. So of course, let me introduce them to you. Welcome, Patrick Zeuner, Head of Airport Partnerships at Kiwi.com. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, Juraj, how are you?
Great to have you with us. Wouter Veenstra, the Data Products Manager at Kiwi.com.
Hi, Wouter. How are you? Hi, everyone.
Great you're with us today as well. And guys from Kiwi.com also have some support from an airport where their services are already implemented in quite a large scale. So welcome also Ritter, Airline Development Manager at Budapest Airport. Hi, Mate.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to join today.
Great, fantastic. Okay, so welcome to the webinar, gentlemen. Patrick, why don't you start with a short overview, and maybe we can also have a little chat around to set the scene for today's discussion.
Sure. You're right. Thanks a lot for the intro, and hi everybody again. So yeah, so we thought about how to support the whole community as such as well. Because why? Well, we're sitting on a lot of data, so we thought, okay, we give it a try as well to somehow get see some trends, see some ideas for you how to recover as quickly as possible. So therefore, we went into the data itself and got some nice information for you today, especially some case studies which Wouter will present later on. So therefore, that today's topic should be all around the data and how to recover from this crisis. And to start with some top level market developments, as you all know, it's globally, we have a global impact. I just took this chart this morning on the left from Flight Radar, which is showing it quite nicely that, let's say, since mid-March, as Friday the 13th, we had this big, let's say, lockdown coming in Europe. But also before, and there was already some decline seen. So what you see here in this chart is the commercial flights, so not all flights, but all commercial flights tracked by Flight Radar in the last, let's say, 2 months or so. And what you can see quite nicely is here that we had around 100K flights scheduled each and every day before the let's say lockdown in Europe. So maybe around 120K worldwide, and this, let's say, went down to around, let's say, 30K. So what we see is that only 30% of all commercial flights are operating right now. But I have some good news for you. So that I think we reached the bottom here. You see it nicely on the graph. So the bottom is there. Why is it still so much flights? Because, well, we are quite European centric, but yes, there are still some flights going on, especially Asia is picking up again. China domestic as well. So therefore, and there's also that on the other side of the picture, still Latam, where there's some flights. So even if, let's say, we couldn't state in Europe, let's say there's almost no traffic. I saw stats today that there's only 1%, let's say, passengers of last year compared against last year. I would say that what you see here is that the bottom is reached. So what everybody else also saw, that it was, let's say, coming from the east and heading westerly direction. So therefore, I think what you see today in Americas, especially in US and Brazil, is what we had 2-3 weeks ago. So therefore, this wave is there. This wave is also still ongoing, but I think the peak is over. The bottom is there. So there's for sure some light at the end of the tunnel, which I wanted, let's say, to depict here as well. So therefore, what we as well thought about is what happens in the different segments, right? So if you talk about recovery, it will not be all equal. So it will not begin all equal. Therefore, if you are an airport, if you are in a certain market, you want to know especially which markets are coming back first, which routes are going to be back first, and therefore there's also Budapest Mate today probably giving you also some insights on their, let's say, perspective. But therefore, we have to be really quite sharp on segmentation, and that's probably, let's say, the key to investigate. Yeah, if you care about your data. So heading to the next slide, which would be all about the recovery mode, right? Because that's a bit I think the big interesting news. What should come out for everybody. So when is traffic picking up again? And I think everybody's asking this kind of question. Our aviation community right now. I think for us, so we really nailed it down to two important points. One is trust. Or consumer confidence that already starts on the government level, right? So you saw European Union, even they with 28 member states or 27, whatever, they could not really rely on one paradigm. Now they're trying, at least in the recovery mode, to get some alignment. I heard about, let's say, a big mid-May gathering where they should decide at least on the recovery mode and opening up borders and skies again. So that for sure will have a quite big impact on the whole, let's say, aviation market picking up again. We heard the Wizz announcement that they, from 1st of May, want to start up operations, especially in Luton and Wizz, with, let's say, limited capacity, but at least it's a good aggressive sign for sure that airlines want to start flying again, and that it's a bit chicken and egg here as well. As long as there's no capacity, nobody will travel as well. So therefore, it's good to see some capacity back in the air. And for sure, there will be, I think, also the trust for consumers or for people traveling, what kind of protective measures are being taken, pre-flight, in-flight. So that is for sure one topic for the airports, but as well for the airlines. So talking about masks, talking about, let's say, social distancing, etc. So that's for sure one big topic for us. And that's what we also try to, let's say, see in our data. And the second topic here is really about market recovery, depending on market segmentation. And there, I think, is quite a dramatic, quite a big variables here. So you have all kinds of sorts of ideas around this topic. So a lot of people expect elderly to not travel as fast as the young. So the young people, the young crowd should be first back in the air because they were not as hit as hard from Corona. So that's, I think, a statement you could do. It has to be proven for sure, but yeah, it could be one hypothesis you can have. And for instance, Wizz Air is really counting on this one, right? That the young travelers will be back first, and with their demographics. Selling tickets to, they see themselves as a favorable airline here. The same for business versus leisure. A lot of people think that leisure will come back first, business last, because of online meetings like this, like with Zoom and webinars and stuff like that, which I would say it's very debatable, because you could say, okay, well, as business could not travel for 2-3 months now, I think that's the first guys which have to get back to talk to people and really meet people. So therefore, I would say that's really something to debate about. So maybe we can address it later.
I will stop you, Patrick. I will stop you here for a second, and exactly I will catch up on what you were just saying. And I have the first poll for our audience today, actually the only one for today. So I'm launching it right now. So please vote. And the question is related exactly to what Patrick was talking about. So what do you guys think, which segment of air travel will recover as the first or in the fastest way? So visit your friends and relatives, VFR, leisure, or business. So I see votes are coming in, which is great. And I would say some surprising results here. I will share them with you in 10 to 15 seconds. So those of you who haven't voted yet, please do so. We have 77% of people already voted. So I am ending the poll and sharing the results with you.
Good. So we don't have debate anymore.
Of course we can. Yeah. So as probably as expected, and this segment you haven't really touched so far, but yeah, 55% of our audience today expect visit VFR market will recover as the first one. And for me, it's quite a surprise that you guys think that 34% of you guys think that business traffic will come back quicker than leisure, for example. So we had a tourism webinar last week when we discussed a lot about the recovery way roads for tourism, and obviously domestic tourism is expected to recover as the first one. But here it's quite interesting, and also I would say encouraging also for us that business traffic will potentially come back relatively fast, as in relation to also what Patrick was saying. So back to you, Patrick. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I would agree on this one. So I don't have to debate anything anymore. So that's I think what I would have suggested as well on this topic. So I'm glad that we are able maybe in 1 or 2 months to get back to normal business meetings, let's say. Getting back to our little slide here. So yeah, nationality also depending on governments opening up or not. So that's for sure one big, let's say, must have. So that the borders are open. Outgoing versus incoming. So that's for sure as well. Quite especially for summer season, quite important, right? So which markets are keen to, let's say, leave their own country and go to warm water destinations. Let's say in Germany, it's right now big discussion. Okay, so is summer holidays going to be, let's say, only in Germany possible, or are we allowed to, let's say, visit Palma de Mallorca or some other, let's say, destination where Germans usually like to go to? So that's, I think, a big topic because it's coming up in 2 months of time. There is some holidays coming, so I guess European Union should decide fast on this one. And then, yeah, domestic versus international. So that's also quite an interesting topic. So yeah, if you have a big domestic market, then for sure this one with capacity is to be filled quite fast because you're not dependent on opening borders. And then it's a bit, okay, so which is it Europe to Europe then as well coming back, and then it's long haul last. So that's also to be checked and to be, let's say, according to the data to be investigated. And what also will have an impact is this kind of disposable income after the corona. So a lot of people are, let's say, frightened to lose their jobs, etc. So I guess this is also going to be, let's say, a point to reflect on. So all in all, it's crazy amount of variables here, and therefore I think if you would do a forecast or a little, let's say, in-house, let's say, a team forecast or some kind of report for your management, it will last too long. You have to put a lot of people on it with good brains and good knowledge to put it all together. And after you've published your little report, it will be already, let's say, too old and not to be read anymore because too much happened in between. So therefore, we think with our little search data pool, which is quite unique and quite with a lot of millions of users every day. So I think therefore the data is already there. So it's just to get that up to everybody and see and analyze themselves. So with that saying, I would say, yeah, I put here my points here. If there's more questions, let's discuss in the Q&A. Yeah, yes, I don't know if you have some more to add to this one.
Yes, there is already interesting point from Jürgen in the Q&A section saying that we should differentiate between the recovery with vaccine available and without it. So, and the information vary on this one. So, but I would say nobody expects that the vaccine will be widely available this year. So, but does that mean that people will not fly at all this year? Probably not. So definitely also interesting point, or not just interesting, but very important point to consider. So yeah. I think the next in mid-May, as you said, mid-May European Commission should issue some kind of guidance for the industry how to proceed with flights. In both airports and airlines, which measures, which sanitation measures potentially to apply. So let's also wait, and we will definitely observe this one too. Mate, over to you. I have to admit, Budapest Airport is really close to my heart. I have been using it many times in the past. I'm sure I will use it a lot in the future as well. You guys, yes, you guys, you the fantastic events there, like the runway run, which I'm not sure is happening this year. Maybe you can tell us something. or it's too early to say probably?
Well, it's too early to make any commitments, right,
Yeah.
for the future. I think it's general now, but I like
Exactly.
the optimism of Patrick, and well, Budapest Airport was no exception. We were hit heavily, and we lost almost all of our traffic. So currently we are close to zero. But luckily we have a brand new cargo city, so cargo is flourishing at Budapest Airport. I must agree that regulation is a key in the upcoming period. As Patrick mentioned, it depends on the border closure lift. So whether it will be unilateral, multilateral, or bilateral. And definitely it would be nice to have a multilateral agreement within the EU states in the first round. So having said that, one point is really painful for us, because this year we expected to have 1.5 million long-haul seats at Budapest Airport. So that I think that the majority of those seats will be lost for this year. But definitely we are making projections how to recover. And that brings me to my second point. Patrick mentioned the importance of data, and some say in the airline industry that cash is king, and I must say that for airports, data is king. So you need to be aware the features of your network from the demand and from the cost side as well. So I must say that Budapest Airport from scratch, I mean the airline development team from scratch, is very data driven. We have qualitative and quantitative data available for a while. And when we faced the crisis, we determined the list of our existing network, because we wanted to see which are the routes which are okay and which are the ones which are in the red. Because those which are in red maybe would not be able to be saved after the crisis. And the airports should be very conscious. Most of the airports have to meet their own liabilities. So we have to be very focused which routes to focus, where we see big problems, and which are the routes which can be recovered the quickest. Another comment, that beginning of this year, I had the chance to go to an airline event in February, and when I talked with airlines, many use the term flat growth for 2020. So I see that there's a general understanding that there was oversupply, overcapacity in the market, and this is when COVID-19 happened to the industry. So some of the routes, I believe, but it's just my personal opinion, would have been modified anyway, reduce capacity, and capital was cheap. So it was easy to finance routes for years before they would have reached break-even. So those were the considerations we took in our calculations when we try to make a projection for the next period.
As far as I understand, you are not on the complete lockdown at the moment. So in addition to cargo flights you mentioned, you also have some passenger flights. So can you share with us, just, I know it's not your direct responsibility, but at least some kind of measures that you are applying on those passenger flights that you have in operation these days?
Sure, with pleasure. We are in line with the current regulation, and we cooperate with the authorities. There's a hotline between authorities. They are great professionals, to be honest, so it's very easy to cooperate with them. And also we have, airports have an advantage because we are also retail outlets. So we can take examples from retail units, shops or pharmacies, what they are doing at the moment. And also we can have a look at public transportation. So we are in a good position. We can take all the good examples from them, as they have already experienced the worst. And those should be implemented. And we have a dedicated team, by the way, at the airport who are focusing on the steps which will have to be done in order to create a safe environment for our returning passengers.
Absolutely, 100%. Thanks a lot for these comments, Mate. Wouter, now over to you. So, obvious question. Tell us a little bit more about this crystal ball and what is it capable of?
Thank you. Thank you, Jirai, in the first instance for having us today. So basically, if we can move one slide, please. Yeah. So we were at Kiwi, we were in a tricky time as well, of course. And we look a lot at our data to see like how can we recover and how can we as a travel industry recover. And then we realized like we want to help the industry as well. And what we also saw is that what we had on the shelves was not really anything we could use straight away. So we started brainstorming, and after some brainstorming, we came to 3 main criteria that we wanted to have in this crystal ball that we're going to design for the world to use. So the first one is uniform. We want different industries to be able to use it. So it needs to be understandable and comprehensible and usable by different industries. We're not talking to airports, destinations, but whoever can benefit from this crystal ball. The second one is real-time data. As Patrick mentioned before, is every little announcement of a government institute changes everything. So if you have static reports, the moment you publish it, it's already old, it's outdated. And the last one we thought of is time. You know, this crisis is not going to be solved tomorrow. It's gonna take a while, and it's gonna take a while to recover. And that's why we want to give the users of this crystal ball the time to really work with the tool and to really have value from it on the long term as well. So after this brainstorming, talking with the engineers, seeing what can we do, we came up with Travel Market Radar. And Travel Market Radar is a dashboard with global search data. So we have millions of searches a day. Now it's a little less, but the whole world, because the world's not traveling, but we have many millions of searches a day. And we have those in a dashboard. And we have it from year to date. So from January 2020 till today, plus 12 weeks ahead. So we have 3 months in advance of data available on the dashboard, and we segment it by travel date. So we show in the lines, in the graphs, we show when do they want to travel. And right now we see this huge dip, and I will dive into some case studies in a minute. But you want to know is whether you're an airport, whether you're a destination, you want to know like, okay, they are looking now, they're dreaming, but when is their dream gonna happen, right? So we sat with a team of devs and engineers, and we came up with 3 tabs. And one of the first one is the absolute figures. So just to give you an indication of how many searches are there from and to your destination this time and this week, because we do it on a weekly basis, versus last week versus the same week last year. Then the second tab is route performance. We pre-calculated the top 10 routes to your destination or to your airport, and we visualize the performance. The same goes for markets, because what I said before, we want to be uniform. So if we're only talking to airports, yes, we talk about routes. But if we talk about destinations, I will dive into Valencia in a second, you will need to be talking about markets. Yeah, so we have the same there, week on week and year on year performance of your top 10 markets. Yeah, let me go into the first one. I took a typical leisure market, and I was actually happy to see the results that we saw before, because it helps me with my case. What we're seeing here is the Netherlands to Valencia. I took Valencia because I live here, and I took the Netherlands because I'm Dutch, and I know that there are a lot of Dutch people coming to Valencia. You see them on bikes all the time. So what we see here is a screenshot, and on the screenshot where there's the blue arrow, you see that's week 11. And what happened in week 11, that is the week when things started to get really serious in Spain, but the Spanish government hadn't made an announcement. At the end of week 11, Sanchez, the Prime Minister of Spain, he told the world about this lockdown, and you see this huge peak. And this huge peak after, because people start panicking and they think like, shit, I need to go home. And plus, in addition to that, we had Fallas here, so there were already a lot of tourists here. So what you see here in the weeks after is you see this drop of searches, of demand. And the dark green line you see is a year-on-year performance, and the light green line is a week-on-week performance. And basically what we see is that it's going down, it's slowing down, and up to week 29, so 3 months from now, we don't see any recovery yet. But so it's quite likely that a city as Valencia, and not only Valencia, many destinations, they will miss their high season. But that's why we talk about time to give you at least 6 months of this dashboard, of this data, so that you as a destination can optimize your low season performance. You know, Valencia is in November, October, they have the marathon, so there's some traffic, but also there's other weeks. How can you attract them? So this is a leisure market, which we agreed on is the slowest recovery. I would like to go to the next slide, because this is a domestic market. And I took Palma de Mallorca, Valencia, because it's a very busy route. It's one of the most popular routes from Valencia. And what you see here is the dark blue one is that same drop, that same vacuum that you saw in the previous slide as well. And you see it dropping over time. But at some point, you see these two peaks at the other two green arrows. And these two peaks are the people that want to travel to see their family, because they want to see each other. I live here, and it's a complete, very strict lockdown, and no one sees their family. So people are dreaming about it. And this is on the Palma de Mallorca Valencia route. But if Jura, if you could please go to the next one, next slide. This is Valencia domestic. So this is all traffic from and to Spain, from Spain and to Spain to Valencia. So you see these peaks coming up, and the peaks are getting higher and higher. So last weekend, the Sanchez, again, he made an announcement that children under 14 years are allowed to go out. And most likely from Saturday onwards, we will be able to go out for some exercise as well. So that's very good. That's very good news. So there's this light at the end of the tunnel. So you see this positivity coming back. And this is Spain, a country where there is a lot of very strong family feeling, but we also see it in other markets. If we could go to the next slide, please. This is Germany, this is Hamburg domestic. So you see the same peaks evolving over time. So you see those people that are starting to dream. They are seeing improvement in the health. The cases are slowing down. So people are willing to dream again. They dare to dream. And the next one is Cologne to Germany. And so you see this happening. So this is a domestic market. So I've looked at many different use cases, and you can see the biggest domestic markets are Germany and Spain in Europe. And you can see these are the fastest recovering. But there's more good news, because I hope, so this is a nice one. So we went from domestic, so what we said earlier, what Patrick mentioned is domestic will recover first, then we have short-haul European, and finally we will have intercontinental. I'm not going to discuss intercontinental, but I do want to show you something on the European market. And this is Tel Aviv Luton. Why did I pick Tel Aviv Luton? Is because Wizz Air made the announcement that they are gonna start flying from this Friday onwards. So you see this, I don't know if Wizz Air saw this data, but you see this huge peak already of people that want to fly, and this huge, even a year-on-year improvement, and a very strong week-on-week improvement. So people are actually, they are willing to fly, they're searching for it. And Tel Aviv Luton is not the only one Wizz Air is going to start operating, because the next one is, they're also going to do to our friends from Budapest. And we see a same peak of people who are willing to travel. And Mate, do you have any idea, any insights, anything? What do you think about this?
Yes, thanks, Wouter. As I said, we did our homework in the past, and we have a lot of historic data to assess the pre-COVID period, the supply and demand. But this tool helps us to understand the demand, because I believe that the recovery will be demand-based, right? So we need to see, and for an airport, it's a useful tool to discuss with the airlines and to have a discussion with them, what they see and what might the tool says. To the UK market, this summer, we would have 160 departing frequencies between Budapest Airport and the UK. And we are a point-to-point airport. Last year, we had over 5 million foreign visitors. by air, arriving and leaving via Budapest. And the UK market is a key market for us. 60% of the passengers are foreigners, I mean, UK residents arriving to Hungary for leisure purpose. But beside that, we have 20% of the people, I mean, the air passengers who are Hungarians and living in the UK. And considering that in total 35% of the travel demand between the UK and Hungary are VFR based. Some say that London is the second biggest Hungarian city, and that might mean an increasing demand of week over week searches. So we believe that VFR will come back. I have experience on my own skin. I have some very close relatives living in London, and they also plan to return home as soon as possible. Certainly without the lockdown and without the quarantine.
Nice.
Of course, yes. So we already have a question from Elaine McElligott. So probably on the airports in the audience. So the question is: should we focus on advertising the routes that people search for while they are in the dreaming phase? So, but are you, for example, doing something at the moment? Are you promoting some routes from Budapest as we speak?
Well, before the crisis, we had a very wide portfolio of B2B and B2C marketing actions. But as I said, at the moment, I think it's too early to determine which tool would be suitable for the current market. And unless the borders are opened, as I said, we are a point-to-point airport. Basically, so it's a wise thing to wait, I think, a few weeks. One of you said that in mid-May, the European Commission might decide or might rule to have some multilateral regulation for all countries. But yeah, we have something in the pipeline already, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Great. Patrick, what are your takes on that? So are we already in a phase that airport and airlines should invest something in advertising and promotion activities in order to capitalize on this dreaming phase in the public?
Yeah, so I guess the smart thing to do is for sure have some game plan ready. Martin mentioned know your routes, know your data, know which markets will work after post-COVID, which will probably not return, and so on. So that's for sure one. Look at what kind of routes are work beforehand and will work afterwards. Second thing, I would look at this kind of data to see, okay, what kind of trends do you see for, let's say, summer vacation or not summer vacation, or maybe missing the whole thing and having to go, let's say, in fall. So I would look at this data as well to complement. And then, if there is, let's say, some possibility to do some kind of advertising, then for sure I would rely on this data.
Excellent. Wouter, one more question about the tool itself. So the source of the data, is it searches on a kiwi.com website, or you have also other sources for this tool for travel market radar?
Yeah, so it's all searches made on kiwi.com and on all of our partners. So we talk about Skyscanner, we talk about Kayak, we talk about many all the global players. Searches made on these engines, they all end up in our database searches.
Yes. And one comment to the chart, because we discussed that leisure might return a little bit later. So we are a typical city break destination for the UK passengers, and July, so the week from 29th or from the 25th week, it's a key period for UK inbound travel to Hungary. And that chart maybe confirms our assumption that leisure might return a little bit later, because that period is a key period for those inbound passengers. And it looks like they are missing, according to this data.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. One more question to you, Mate. You already said that the airports, of course, should do their homework in terms of all their routes and identify those who are doing well and those who are in red figures. So your advice was that don't focus on those who are in red figures, that it is quite likely that they will be gone. Focus on those who are looking positive. So what exactly did you mean by that? What are you guys doing in Budapest in terms of talking to airlines, or how exactly are you approaching all these activities in terms of supporting those routes that actually work?
Yes, people relation is important. So having a good and trustful relationship with the airlines is a key, but also you need to have some data to start a meaningful discussion with them. So we access RASK and CASK data from our data provider. That's very useful to see the trend and to have at least insight about route ranking. And certainly it costs to spend on data, but you can decide whether to spend on data to be fully aware rather than spending money in the current circumstances on routes which maybe cannot be saved at all. So you need to be cautious about your spending for this year as an airport, I believe, and the data can help you to achieve that. So we had a look at the routes at Budapest Airport. Then we determined the competitor set. So let's say Vienna, Prague, Sofia, Warsaw, Bucharest. So we had a look at if the airline operates from a Western European city to those routes, what is the RASK and CASK compared to Budapest? And then, because for an airline, block time is block time. So if Budapest is 2 hours, but within 2 hours another destination can be reached, we also had a look at by sector length for the CASK results. So we tried to have a look in the last 4 weeks to the market from every angle, and well, now we have a well-grounded assumption, and this tool can help us to complement that.
Yeah. So again, very comprehensive work, and yeah, you need. I guess that your team is quite busy also these days when some people are on Netflix and other services all the time. I guess myself, I also don't feel like I have time for any of that stuff. So I guess it's the same for many people in the audience as well. I will use Jürgen in the audience as a little bit the devil's advocate. So he repeatedly is saying that we shouldn't like hope for a strong recovery before we get the vaccine. So what are your takes on that, Patrick?
Well, I would let's say take this angle. Yes, there for sure gonna be people which will not travel, but let's take with the younger, let's say people 20, 30 years or whatever. They're not affected really. They are, let's say, now already locked down 2 months. I hear regularly, let's say, people saying, I need to get out, I need to get to some other place and so on. I guess what will be trendy, probably some destination where there's no crowd, right? I think there's a lot of, let's say, those within Europe, which is not with too many people. So looking at the Nordics, let's say, where there's not too many inhabitants in Sweden or Norway whatsoever. So I guess there are certain destinations which are even more attractive and maybe safe in terms of, let's say, conception, right? So therefore, I think there will be people traveling. So that's my optimistic view here. For sure, depending all on the government regulations. But I would say, I mean, we see the 30% still flying around on the worldwide view. And yes, we have a quite, let's say, dark, let's say, European movement at the moment, almost zero. But if we hear, let's say, from China that the people are going back to work, and also, let's say, the people start flying again, I think that's where we're going to head to as well. It's going to be on low volume first as well. The recovery probably will take a while, but yes, I'm still an optimist.
I definitely share that with you. Also in Slovakia, things are going pretty well, and if also in the other European countries, if things will go as the trend is these days, so within difficult to say it's different for every country, but in Slovakia, where I am based, in beginning of June, we should be relatively back to normal. So also figures are showing positive trends in Italy and Spain, even of course, it's a little bit slower, but the trend is starting to shift. So that's good, and hopefully also that's good also for our industry. Wouter, can you explain a little bit more on the tool, on the Travel Market Radar? How exactly can be beneficial for the destinations, for the tourism boards, as we have a couple of them also in the audience today. So how they can benefit from getting data from this tool? Yeah, sorry.
There we go. So yeah, as I mentioned before, we look at travel data, and we know that especially the European, where the city breaks, what Mate was mentioning, is that and what Patrick just said, I think young people, they are desperate to go out again and desperate to travel again, and it's going to be a challenge to see how what the fares will be of the airlines. But I think there will be a lot of amongst young people, a lot of city breaks, city traveling. But this won't happen in the high season, at least not to our typical tourist destinations such as Italy or in Spain or in Portugal, because it won't be finished by then. So it will be in the time we talk about, I think this, yeah. So I talk about September, October. This is when the groups will come back, but the different markets come back at a different moment in time, because I would say, like, the Germans and the Dutch, who are not finished with the crisis, but they have it under control, are more likely to start dreaming now and start looking at tickets to go to Spain than the UK, where everything is still very hot. So I think if we start looking at these markets, and that's why we put the market performance in there, especially for the DMOs, to say, like, okay, when are what markets coming back? And what my experience is that most tourism organizations, they have like the subsidiaries in the different countries, and they have different strategies for these different countries. So we want to enable them to alter this market data set to use the data in different ways for different markets. So yeah, that's for me the most important thing from a DMO perspective. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for that. Mate, we have a comment from my colleague, from Tony Holwood, who is saying that, yeah, you're absolutely right, that these airports that are prepared with hard data and they have good relationship with their stakeholders, with their airline partners, they will be the winners for the first couple of months after the lockdowns are over. So there is also probably the question, not just for you, but also for maybe for Patrick as well. What do you think about the hub airports versus point-to-point airports? So is it right to expect that the hub airports, they will be quicker to recover the traffic with their hub carriers? Mate, you're not a hub airport, but you have, let's say, a lot, for example, has a quite big base, of course, Wizz and Ryanair as well. So what is your take on that?
Well, we have lucky one of the most aggressive low-cost carrier at Budapest Airport. So from that aspect, we hope and we expect that traffic will recover, maybe a little bit bigger pace when compared to the traditional hub airport. But we also have another cooperation with Kiwi.com, BudConnects, to accommodate self-connect traffic flow. And as well, some say tickets will be cheaper, some say tickets will be more expensive, but for sure connectivity will suffer in the next period. So self-connecting might become even more relevant, and from that aspect, we also did our homework, and in the last year we introduced BudConnects. So passengers can compare two low-cost sectors with the help of Kiwi.com. So having those two assumptions, taking into consideration, we'll see, but I'm as optimistic as Patrick, let's say.
So Patrick, what do you think, point-to-point airports versus hub airports?
Yeah, so I guess there will be a fair share for both. So point-to-point, so if you think it's too risky, let's say, to go via hub, then you will probably take a point-to-point rather than the other one.
If you have the option, of course.
If you have the app option, and that's the point which Martin takes. So if we're talking about less capacity and less ways to get to a certain destinations, and what do you do? So if there are less direct destinations and let's say more connection through any of those hubs, we connect everything with everything. So there will be a solution for sure on kiwi.com for each of those. Prices always depend on the carriers for sure, right? Taking this topic on capacity here, so who will be in the skies first? All the aggressive low-cost carriers, which still, let's say, have a budget and have, let's say, the deep pockets to quickly start and quickly recover. So therefore, they will be the first in the skies. From the legacy carriers, for sure, they also will try to open up fast, but they are usually not as quick as low-cost carriers. So therefore, I think we for sure will see self-connect in the future. It's maybe also will drive this development even more, because what we could see is that more people go online buying tickets, etc., and not going to them local travel agencies like we have in these conservative markets like here in Germany still. So that kind of online consumption will also increase, could enforce as well the, let's say, the topic. And another driver could be that people search for alternative ways of hubbing next to the big hubs, like say Frankfurt or big hubs, let's say, in UK like Heathrow and so on. So trying to avoid all these huge crowds, right? So if you then can just do a stopover in Eindhoven or Budapest or wheresoever, where, let's say, maybe the volumes of this traffic is not as big, so the let's say the kind of, let's say, perception on risk is less, then this would also, let's say, count into, let's say, the trend or the assumption that there will be more of those alternative, let's say, connections which we offer as well. So time will tell, but I think the model will evolve, and it for sure will be still around.
Mm-hmm. Good. I guess all those airports and destinations who are in the audience today are already wondering. So you are talking about this fantastic tool, Travel Market Radar, and all what it is capable of. So the obvious question is how those guys can access this tool. Patrick or Wouter, you can toss a coin.
So if you are an airport, please contact Patrick. He's with the airports. If you're not an airport, you're any other institution, please send me an email, and I'm happy to have a look at it. So the tool is you send us an email, we update the database. It's for free. It is, and at least for 6 months. As I said, we really want you to actually have some added value. It's not just a teaser. So just shoot us an email, and yeah, we'll get it ready for you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. So also, I think it's a very, very nice gesture also for the whole industry, the gesture of support that this great tool is available for free. So definitely all of you guys in the audience from the airports or tourism authorities use this opportunity. I'm afraid we don't have much time for more for today. So thank you everybody for joining us on today's webinar. Thank you to all the speakers, Patrick Zeuner and Wouter Veenstra from kiwi.com and Ritter from Budapest Airport. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
And I have a couple of announcements to make for the next couple of weeks. Next week we have very interesting webinar, which my colleague John Howell will be moderating together with John Grant from AviaDev Consult. And we will be looking at restructuring and realigning airline finance and operations during COVID-19. So we have some really experienced guys in the panel, Eddie Peniaszek from Ishka, Sylvain Bosk, former airline executive from Qatar Airways, from FastJet, from South African Airways, Stephen Kargman from Kargman Associates, who is an expert on restructuring, and also David Aher, so from Tuskar Aero Consulting. So very interesting panel, potentially probably more for the airline people, but also of course for all of you who are interested into understanding how airlines need to work in order to restructure and to survive this challenging phase. So that's next Wednesday on the 6th of May. Next Thursday on the 7th of May, we are responding to big demand that we saw on our AviaDev aviation quiz. So my colleague Mike Robinson is already working on the second round for the AviaDev aviation quiz. It's a really interesting way to still for the community to be together, to have some good quality time, and to not think about all the challenges that we have to face on our daily jobs, but for these 40-45 minutes we can have some fun with the industry that we all love. So that's for next Thursday on the 7th of May. And one more invitation for all of you in the audience for the 12th of May, our parent company Bench Events, which AviaDev Europe is part of, is preparing the second edition of the virtual conference Hospitality Tomorrow. And this time this virtual conference will follow the sun with the focus on China, India, Middle East, Europe, and ending with North Americas. And the first edition, Bench Digital, which is the, let's say, the subsidiary of Bench Events, the first edition attracted 10 days ago over 5,000 decision makers from more than 120 countries all over the world. So a very, very interesting platform. I think over 30 experienced speakers from the whole all sectors of hospitality industry are already confirmed. So Hospitality Tomorrow, definitely follow Hospitality Tomorrow on LinkedIn, website hospitalitytomorrow.com, and of course follow us AviaDev Europe on LinkedIn as well, where you see all the invitations and all the updates about our upcoming webinars. So I think that's it for today. Thanks a lot again to you guys in the audience, to you guys who were with us today as speakers. So Wouter, Mate, and Patrick, thanks a lot. Have a great rest of the day. Stay safe and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.